So earlier this year I was in Shanghai for the month of April, and during that time I'd filmed quite a bit of my experience there. Now looking back at the footage, I've realised just how much of it is just me eating food. So I thought I'd share that with you today in a list that I've compiled of the best restaurants to go to in Shanghai from a local. I hope you enjoy, and hopefully next time you're in the city you can try one of these places out. So without further ado, the first restaurant that I'd like to recommend is called Doccument. It's a noodle shop that specialises in Shanghainese style pooled noodles, and it's coated in this really lovely, rich, umami, salty soy sauce broth. And it's also my personal favourite in this whole list.
老弄堂，定西路我们要吃老弄堂面馆的面。我点了腊肉面，给你点了大排面、猪肝面，还点了这什么焦货焦的，也有的给你点了个虎皮蛋。你知道什么叫虎皮蛋吗？你吃了就知道。知道吗？一个就是可以说是炸弹，将死人。
面马上来哦，谢谢，不客气。
All the food here was so good, and if you want some more tips when you come here, I would recommend getting their scalloped pork liver and clam noodles. It's so good, and it's also their most popular menu item, I think for a very good reason. We also ordered their pork schnitzel on the side, which was delicious and crispy. The batter was so light, the meat was really juicy, and it's a really nice contrast against the really slurpy noodles that you've already ordered.
Please sit. Why don't you enjoy a cup of calming jasmine tea?
I don't think you can really say that you've been to China without having a decent cup of tea, and tea houses are the perfect way to experience this. The first tea house that I've got on my list is more modern. It's called Yingxi. It's a chain store all across the country, but each individual shop has its own interior concept. So suffice to say that the theme for our tea shop was maths homework and drinking tea, I suppose, which a little bit stereotypical, but a correct assertion of the Chinese psyche. For these tea houses, I'd usually recommend having it in a set menu. You can stay in these tea rooms for hours on end, so it's really nice to have a cup of tea in hand, and they'll also serve it with various fruits and nuts and pastries and cakes. And if you come with friends, you can sit back and relax and talk about your day and catch up. It is a very lovely place. The second tea store that I'd recommend, it's in the heart of Yuyuan, which is quite a popular tourist destination. I used to frequent this place a lot as a little girl, and I'm always coming back even now. The architectural style is very old, so you'll step over a menkan as you come through the door. A spatial divider between the external modern world and the interior, which is, you know, old and historic. If you're drinking on the second floor, you can watch all the people scurrying away doing their business down below. It's a really nice place to people watch, and I think in this kind of architectural space you can really begin to let your mind wander about the history of this country and the lives of the people who had been here before and the different stories that these walls have heard. It's a place where I can easily find myself getting lost in and like gazing out of the window or getting lost in my imagination. It's a really beautiful space. I'd really recommend it even if you're alone. So the next two restaurants are family favourites, and they are both iterations of the iconic Shanghainese noodle house that you can often see on postcards that illustrate the city. This first restaurant specialises in mahjang ban mian, which means tahini sauce mixed in noodles. They're so beloved by my family that we're constantly making it at home as well, but it's never quite the same as what you get in the restaurant. Anyang mian or angelongaia in Shanghainese. It translates to grandma's noodle house, and when it first opened it was this elderly woman who made all the noodles. Now the restaurant has been handed down through the family. So this restaurant's specialty is soup noodles, and what can I say, they're so delicious. Both of these restaurants have been in the Michelin catalogue for quite a few years. I think restaurants like these, they're such a quintessential part of the old Shanghainese food culture that if you're in the city, they really are a must visit for cultural reasons, as well as for deliciousness reasons. So my next recommendation would be for coffee. Over the last few years, Shanghai has quickly secured its spot as the city with the most coffee shops in the world. This pretty much guarantees a good cup of coffee wherever you go, and even the chain stores have some pretty decent coffee as well. If I had to pick, my favourite would be Metal Hands, which is an independent coffee shop that is so cute, cozy and quaint. They have a really industrial interior, and their smaller shop front also has a little library that you can pick and choose from, and you can read for pretty much the whole day. Okay, I didn't know how to put this in the video, but I think it's time to talk about Starbucks. Probably the most famous coffee shop in the world. If you're in the area, you should definitely check out the flagship store in Shanghai. This store is huge, with different zones for each of their different services. So for example, they have a zone for their bakery and their espresso and their cold drip. Also, most intriguingly, they have a designated section of the shop that shows them producing and manufacturing coffee beans that get sent all across the country. It's a very interactive and immersive experience. I just think it's designed so beautifully, and it's definitely, I would say, a tourist attraction if you find yourself in the area. Okay, I feel like this item on the list might need a bit of backstory, but at the time of my stay in Shanghai, there was one shop that was blowing up across social media. I think also capitalizing on the new Chinese aesthetic on Douyin. This one tea shop called Teastone was just everywhere. Like, all the cool kids wanted to come to this restaurant. Nowadays, I'm not too sure because the trend cycle seems to be quite quick in the city, but I would definitely say it was such a nice experience that I had to put it in this video. Teastone is a really modernist, like even more modernistic take on the tea house genre that we explored earlier. It isn't exactly private rooms and private seating, but the way that they've blended and brewed the tea, it's still making the tea in techniques that were founded in the Tang Dynasty, this traditional element of China. Even their architecture is an interpretation of really old traditional Chinese wood joinery techniques as well. I would also like to bring your attention to the different types of treats that you can get with your tea. They're designed as very simplistic Chinese snacks. So the one on the very left is called a bingtang hulu, which is basically a hawthorn berry covered in toffee sugar. And when we were younger, there would be older men in little carts that would ride around and you could go and buy one. The one in the center is the one that we ended up getting. It's a xiaolongbao, which is very, very famous to the region of Shanghai. But if you don't know what it is, it's a soup dumpling. It's made of pork, and characteristically it has a very thin dumpling skin wrapped around it. That even inside it looked like what a soup dumpling is meant to look like. All of the red bits would represent the meat inside of the soup dumpling, and these golden nuggets that you see spread throughout, they were actually chestnut. It's very reminiscent of how a good soup dumpling should be made, with golden soup inside that spills out when you eat it. I had to share it because I haven't heard anyone else talk about this amazing phenomenon inside of the soup dumpling. And then the third one, lucky last, is tofu. And of course, everyone knows what tofu is. I love tofu. It's tofu. So next, let's talk about Koreatown. So I'm sure everyone knows about Chinatown, but in Shanghai we have Koreatown. It is a bit of a foodie hub within the city, and it's a great place to go with as many friends as possible. Most of the restaurants are made for communal dining, so the portion sizes are quite huge. My first mistake was going there alone. When I went to this restaurant that specialized in soybeans, so soy sauce, tofu, and soy milk. So the only menu item that I could have ordered without stuffing myself, without dying of overconsumption, were their soy milk buckwheat noodle soup. It has a really light soy flavour. I think it's done exceptionally well, and they give you some banchan to go along with your dish. So I really enjoyed eating the soup with a bite of kimchi and a bite of bean sprouts. I'm not too sure if that's the right way to eat it, but that's how I would do it. As you walk out of Koreatown, you'll see that there are little tents. There's a street in Koreatown that's full of tents, and those open up at night time for nighttime dining. So most of them are fried chicken and barbecue shops. I think if you pick any restaurant on that street, it would be quite fun. It is a bit of a tourist attraction, so their prices might be a little bit higher than Korean food in the rest of the city. But I don't know, it makes you feel like you're in Korea when you're not quite, so that's a fun experience. And if all else fails, I guess you can always have takeout. Yeah. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.